The first time a stranger's boyfriend looked me dead in the eyes like he was memorizing my face, I realized I might not make it out of that restaurant alive. My name's Daniel, I'm 27, and this all started in a small cafe in Portland, Oregon, where I usually went to work on freelance projects. That morning I was hunched over my laptop, sipping burnt coffee, when a woman approached me. She was maybe early 30s, brown hair tied too tight like she hadn't slept in days, and her hand shook as she slid an envelope across my table. 3 crisp $100 bills. Please, she whispered. I just need you to sit nearby while I break up with my boyfriend. Don't say anything, don't interfere, just be there. Call 911 if he hurts me. Her name was Hannah, and in the strangest way, she already looked like someone who'd rehearsed her own death. She explained it in a rush. Her boyfriend, Ryan, was unpredictable. Never hit her, not once. But he punched walls, shattered phones, screamed until his throat went raw. Once, he'd driven his car straight through an ex's garage door after she tried to leave him. For months, Hannah had been searching for the courage to walk away, but every attempt ended in one of his explosions. She said he'd isolated her so thoroughly that she had no one left to call. No sister, no friend, not even a neighbor she trusted. So here I was, her last resort. I told myself it would be fine. Public restaurant, crowded tables, bright daylight. I needed the money, and all I had to do was sit one booth away, pretend to work, and keep my phone ready. By the time Ryan walked in, 5 minutes late, my stomach was already twisting. He wasn't just big, he was the kind of big that made people clear space without realizing they were doing it. Thick neck, broad shoulders, veins bulging in his forehead even when he smiled. He kissed Hannah, but she turned her cheek. That was the first sign. I angled my laptop so I could see their reflection on my dark screen. She spoke in this practiced, steady tone like she'd rehearsed 100 times in the mirror. Ryan laughed at first, thought she was joking. But when she didn't laugh back, his face froze. Then hardened. His hand shot across the table, clamping her wrist, not enough to make her cry out, but hard enough that I saw her skin flush red. You're not serious, he said, his voice so loud the couple next to them stopped eating. Hannah pulled her hand back and kept talking about different paths, her voice small but steady. His jaw twitched like he was grinding his teeth. I gripped my phone tighter under the table, my thumb hovering over the call button. The waiter arrived, breaking the moment, but Ryan ordered for both of them without looking at Hannah. His tone was calm, too calm, like nothing was wrong. But I saw the way his knuckles went bone white against the menu. That fake normality was worse than any yelling, it meant he could switch masks at will. When the water glass tipped, he smiled at the busboy like he was the friendliest man alive. But when the busboy left, Ryan leaned in again, whispering fast and low, hand shaking, words I couldn't catch except. 3 years, everything I've done, you can't just. Hannah tried to stand. He yanked her back down, still grinning for the room like this was date night, not a breakup. That was the moment I wanted to act. To stand up, to pull her out. But Hannah had made me swear no interference unless he got violent. And part of me was still holding on to the money like it justified my cowardice. But watching her trapped there while he demanded over and over, who is he? Just tell me who he is, I started to feel sick. Then Ryan's chair clattered to the floor as he stood up too fast. The whole cafe jumped. He laughed, apologized, picked it back up. Sat down again. And then, in the fakest gesture of romance I'd ever seen, he grabbed both her hands and squeezed them across the table. From the outside, maybe it looked sweet. From where I sat, I could see Hannah's fingers trying to pull away. The manager began to approach, but Ryan spotted him and instantly raised his palms, smiling like a saint. Sorry, just a passionate discussion with my girlfriend. And that was when Hannah said it. Clear as a gunshot. I'm not your girlfriend anymore. Everything in him changed. The mask dropped. His face went blank, too blank, and then he rose. Slowly this time. Deliberate. He walked around the booth until Hannah was pinned against the wall, his hand resting casually on the back of her chair, blocking her escape. I stood, ready. That's when his head snapped toward me. Not a glance, a stare. The kind of look that carved into you, like he was saving every detail of my face for later. You need something. His voice was calm. Too calm. My blood went cold. I forced a smile. No. Just stretching. But the way he studied me, I knew he'd figured it out. He knew I wasn't just some random guy with a laptop. He knew Hannah wasn't alone. And in that instant, I realized something terrifying. This wasn't just Hannah's problem anymore. It was mine too. But that wasn't the worst of it, not even close. Ryan didn't blink. Didn't move. Just sat there, staring at me across the table like he was peeling back my skin to see what was underneath. His hands rested flat on the wood, fingers trembling with a rage he was trying desperately to cage. Behind him, Hannah's eyes were huge, glassy with tears. She shook her head at me, mouthing one word over and over. Run. But I couldn't. My legs wouldn't move. My throat felt like it had closed up, like I'd swallowed cement. If I ran, he'd chase me. If I stayed, he might snap. I was caught in this sick game where every second stretched out like it lasted an hour. Finally, I forced words out. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just working. I gestured weakly at my laptop screen, where I'd opened a random spreadsheet to fake typing. Ryan leaned forward, squinting at it, then back at me. His eye scanned my face like he was measuring my heartbeat. He was so close now I could smell his cologne, sharp, metallic, suffocating. The silence was unbearable. I did the only thing I could think of. I reached for my water glass. My hand shook so bad it slipped. The glass toppled, hit the floor, and shattered. The crash jolted everyone. Ice and water scattered across the tile. For one blessed moment, Ryan's stare broke. The waiter and busboy rushed in, towels in hand. We'll clean it up, don't worry. Ryan stepped back, forced to move. That gave Hannah an inch of space, the first inch she'd had in 20 minutes. I saw her inhale like she'd been drowning. I used the chaos. Slid my phone under the table, thumb already hovering, and dialed 911 without saying anything, just left the line open. By the time the manager appeared, Ryan had morphed again. The anger gone, replaced with charm so slick it made my skin crawl. We're fine, he said with a smile. Just a lover's spat. He slung an arm over Hannah's shoulders, pulling her tight. I watched her body go rigid, like she'd turned to stone. The manager hesitated. Everyone in the cafe was staring, phones half raised. A couple was definitely recording. And Ryan knew it. I saw it flash in his eyes, the realization that whatever he did next might be on video. For a second, I thought that would stop him. But predators like Ryan? Cameras don't scare them. They just make them smarter. The manager cleared his throat. Sir, I'm going to have to ask you both to leave. You're disturbing other customers. Ryan's smile faltered. He opened his mouth to argue, but the manager cut him off. Or I can call the police. That shut him up. He let go of Hannah, adjusted his shirt, and stood. Calm. Composed. Almost polite. He walked to the door, stopped beside my table, and looked down at me. 3 full seconds. Silent. Cold. His eyes promised one thing: this isn't over. Then he walked out. The bell above the door jingled like a funeral toll. Hannah collapsed into the nearest chair, trembling so hard her teeth chattered. The staff hovered around her, offering water, calling locksmiths, trying to help. That's when she whispered something that made my stomach twist. He still has my keys. I tried to give her back the $300. Told her to keep it, that I hadn't earned it. But she shoved it back into my hands. You might need it, she said, her voice shaking. Because he saw your face. And Ryan doesn't forget. And she was right. Because later that night, when I finally made it home, I checked my phone. One new voicemail. From a blocked number. The voice was calm, almost friendly. Hey there. I think we should talk about that little misunderstanding at the cafe today. No hard feelings. It was Ryan. And he somehow had my number. The voicemail played on repeat in my head. His voice was too calm. Too measured. The kind of voice you use when you're deciding whether to shake someone's hand or break it. I didn't sleep that night. Every creak in my apartment, every car that rolled past the window, I thought it was him. By morning my hands were shaking so bad I spilled coffee all over my shirt before work. And then my phone buzzed again. A text from Hannah, who's parked outside my building right now. She was sitting in her car at a gas station, too scared to go home. She'd already called the cops. They told her he wasn't breaking any laws by sitting on a public street. That's when it hit me, this wasn't going to be a one-time thing. Ryan wasn't just angry. He was calculating. And for the first time in years, I remembered something I'd buried deep. I was 16 when my uncle's ex-husband stalked her after their divorce. He'd sit in his truck outside our house, engine running, headlights aimed straight at our living room windows. I used to sit on the floor doing homework, pretending I didn't notice, but I always noticed. Every night, my uncle would mutter, "Ignore him. He's harmless." But then one night, we came home from the grocery store and found the word liar carved into my uncle's front door. I can still remember the way my mom's hand shook as she tried to scrub the letters out with bleach. I remember lying awake, listening for footsteps outside my window. That's what this felt like. Except now, I wasn't 16. I wasn't a bystander. I was in it. 2 days later, Hannah and I went to the courthouse together to file for a restraining order. The waiting room was packed with people filling out the same forms, all of us looking over our shoulders. I wrote my statement about the cafe, about the wrist grab, the blocked exits, the way Ryan looked at me like I was already dead. The clerk told us a judge would review it within 48 hours. 48 hours felt like forever. That evening, I tried to go back to normal. I went to my usual coffee shop to work, like I always did. I told myself Ryan wouldn't dare show up there. But an hour in, I felt it. That shift in the air, that prickling on the back of my neck. I looked up, and there he was. Ryan. Sitting at a table across the room. He didn't order anything. Didn't open a laptop or a book. Just sat there, hands folded, staring at me. My chest tightened. My body wanted to bolt for the door, but my brain whispered, proof. So I pulled out my phone and hit record. The second he saw the red dot on my screen, he stood. Walked out without a word. The barista came over, asking if I was okay. That's when I realized my whole body was shaking so violently I could barely hold the cup in my hand. The cops told me later, document everything. Call 911 if he approaches. Like that was supposed to help. Like documentation could stop a man who looked me in the eye and promised, without words, that he wasn't done with me. By the 4th week, I thought maybe I was adjusting. I kept my head down, changed my routes, carried pepper spray everywhere I went. Fear had settled into my bones like background noise, always humming, but never fully erupting. Then Ryan reminded me he could still shatter me anytime he wanted. It happened in the most ordinary place, the grocery store. I was standing in the dairy aisle, staring at milk cartons, when someone brushed past me hard enough to knock things out of my basket. I bent down to grab them. And that's when I smelled it. That same sharp, metallic cologne. Ryan. He crouched with me, smiling like we were old friends. He picked up my loaf of bread and handed it back. His fingers wrapped around my wrist and he leaned in so close I felt his breath against my ear. You should stop filling Hannah's head with lies, he whispered. My entire body locked up. I wanted to scream, but my voice caught in my throat. By the time I fumbled for my phone, he was already at the end of the aisle, turning back to wave at me with that same monstrous smile. 30 seconds. That's all it lasted. But my legs shook so hard I had to lean against the freezer just to stay upright. When I told the police, they shrugged. Public space. No threat. Nothing we can do. But I knew what Ryan was doing. He was tightening the rope slowly, inch by inch, until I'd choke myself with my own fear. And he didn't stop. 3 nights later, I was leaving work late. The parking lot was empty except for one car. His car. Parked 3 spaces from mine. He didn't get out. Just sat there with the headlights on, watching me. I pulled out my phone, recording, my voice shaking as I told 911 there was a man violating a restraining order in my work lot. Ryan must have seen the screen glow because he started his engine and drove away. But not before he smiled. Not before he waved. The cops showed up 15 minutes later, annoyed he was already gone. They took my shaky video, said they'd add it to the file. Like a file would save me when his car was waiting in the dark. By then, Hannah was unraveling. She missed work, couldn't sleep, jumped every time her phone buzzed. One night she came over with a bottle of wine and sat on my couch, crying into her hands. "I can't live like this anymore," she whispered. "Maybe I should just drop it. Let him win. At least then he'd stop." I didn't know what to say. Because part of me understood. Part of me wanted to do the same thing, anything to make him disappear. But Ryan didn't stop because you let him win. He stopped when he got bored. When he drained you dry. I knew that. She knew that. And then came the email. Subject line, apology. At first, it read like an apology. Then it twisted. He accused me of being a paid actor, of conspiring with Hannah to ruin him. He said he had proof I'd lied, that he'd sue us both. And then the final line. "I know where you live. I know what car you drive. Lies have consequences you'll never see coming." I forwarded it to the detective without responding. But that night, I shoved a baseball bat beside my bed and slept with my shoes on, just in case I had to run. And when the court date finally came, I realized Ryan hadn't been playing games. He'd been practicing. Because in that courtroom, wearing a clean suit and looking every bit the successful, respectable man, he convinced everyone in the room that we were the liars. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Just wood-paneled walls, worn benches, and a stale smell of coffee. But my stomach twisted like I was stepping into an execution chamber. Hannah sat 3 chairs down, both of us pretending not to know each other on the prosecutor's advice. And then Ryan walked in. Not the Ryan we'd seen in the cafe. Not the man who grabbed wrists and blocked doors. No, this Ryan wore a pressed suit, his hair neatly combed, his face arranged in calm concern. To the strangers in that room, he looked like a professional, respectable man who had simply fallen into a messy breakup. And when his lawyer stood up, I understood the trap we'd walked into. They painted Hannah as unstable. Said she exaggerated, made up stories to punish Ryan for moving on. Then they turned to me. Why had I accepted money to sit in on a private conversation? Was I a friend pretending to be a stranger? A paid actor in Hannah's scheme? The judge even asked me directly about the $300. My voice shook as I explained, no, I didn't know Hannah before that day. No, I wasn't hired to lie. I just wanted to make sure she was safe. Ryan sat there, shaking his head sadly, playing the role of the wounded man betrayed by the 2 people who ruined his life. The same hands that had trembled with rage in that cafe were folded neatly on the table like a choir boy's. For hours, it went on, facts twisted, moments distorted, our fear minimized. And then the judge finally spoke. He said the pattern of Ryan's behavior, following, messages, parking lot appearances, did show a credible threat. Hannah's protective order would be extended for a full year. We'd technically won. But the moment the gavel hit, Ryan shot up so fast his chair toppled over. He stormed out, his lawyer scrambling behind him. And even as the bailiff told us to remain seated, I could feel it, that this wasn't victory. It was a warning shot. Because later that night, my phone exploded. Dozens of messages from strangers. Comments on my lockdown social media. Some called me a liar, others a gold digger, others worse. Somehow, Ryan's version of the story had already spread, and people I'd never met were threatening me, telling me I'd ruined an innocent man. Hannah moved to a secured apartment across town, only giving her new address to 3 people. I maxed out my credit card on security cameras and locks. We learned to survive in fragments, therapy sessions, shifting routines, safety plans that never really felt safe. 6 months later, the $300 bills from that cafe still sat in my desk drawer. Crisp. Untouched. Every time I thought about spending them, my stomach turned. Because they weren't money anymore. They were a reminder. A reminder that I said yes when someone asked for help. A reminder that I risked my life for a stranger. And a reminder that the fear Ryan left behind wasn't hers alone anymore, it was mine too. The truth is, I never really left that cafe. Part of me is still sitting there, waiting for Ryan to look up and recognize my face.